What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode number 85, brought to you by the Antisocial Network. Today, we have my very first return ever. And I'm really excited. He's a good friend of mine. I'm super excited to have him again. He reached out last night. He's like, hey, man, I got something I want to share. I didn't ask no questions because I want to be surprised. So here we go. We got the return of Mitch Harley. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm glad I qualified to come back when I asked. So
Oh, yeah, you did. You definitely did. You definitely did. You qualify on every day that ends in Y.
nice.
All right, Mitch. So let's before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about your day. How was your day?
My day's been all right. Every day's a bit of a roller coaster, and I think a lot of people, especially those that are struggling, I think times are getting a little tougher and tougher for everybody. So it's for me, it's not about anything other than just, okay, what are the little wins today? How do I stay positive? Because I was telling someone this today, actually, I have a very positive outlook on my long-term situation. Um, but sometimes the day to day can get super frustrating, and you
Yeah.
can just be like, what the crap? Like, I just need a break once in a while. But fortunately for me, I am able to maintain that more positive long term look, which means, okay, this is just temporary. This is temporary. The rest is inevitable. Whether you're talking money, whether you're talking relationships, whether you're talking friendships, whatever it is, those are inevitable in my mind. And that has been kind of a turning point for me. But that has not changed. Those are so clear to me. And I believe so wholeheartedly that is inevitable, that it lets me get through the day and bring more positivity to my days than I traditionally would have prior.
Oh, absolutely. I believe wholeheartedly in what you put out, you receive. Wholeheartedly, I believe that if you put out negativity, you're going to get that in return a hundredfold. But if you put out positivity, you're going to get that in a hundredfold, and your day is going to be so much better. It sounded like your day was better.
It's getting there. They're getting there.
Yeah, they're getting there. They're getting
They're
there,
getting
man.
there.
All right, man. So let's talk about it. I want to know what's going on. Why did you want to come back, and what do you want to share?
So I think for me, I've been on this, and you understand this. Like the personal development world has been huge for me. It's been a big journey, and hopefully it never ends. Right? It shouldn't. If it ends, wake me up, because that's a very dark point in your life.
Yeah.
So, and me being very analytical, I've started breaking down things. I've started observing and almost kind of documenting a little bit, and taking that information and saying, okay, what do I do with this information now? What do I take with my findings? I don't work in a lab. Oh wait, I'm a podcaster. So let's take this to the world. Um,
Yeah.
and I've found some incredible, I guess, revelations, and maybe people, that have been there longer, they're already there. But for me, it's been big breakthroughs.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big believer in validation.
Mm.
And I believe that the misunderstanding of validation in ourselves and others has led to the major breakdown in relationships, in business, in self-worth, and in our goals that we set for ourselves and achieving them. So to me, I kind of wanted to talk about validation and the surrounding part of that, and also the need, no matter, and especially for an audience with that you cater to when it comes to recovery in whatever form from that is, the need for being uncomfortable,
Oh yeah.
and the fear that people have of being uncomfortable. And I think maybe even we should start with that and lead into validation, because it's just such a fundamental thing that's missing.
Absolutely. And as we're getting into as we're getting into uncomfortability, man, I think that that's the key to any person's recovery, right? Because recovery at its core is about changing, right? Is about stepping out of that cycle of insanity that we've lived in or we've put ourselves in, stepping out of that and changing the way that we think, the way that we act, and the way that we interact with other people. And one of the things that I've noticed is that I do my best growth being completely uncomfortable, right? And we're not talking about like completely exposed, right? Because there's levels of vulnerability in which we have to choose to be with certain people. But there's also that general acceptance of I have to be uncomfortable in order to grow.
Mhm.
And so, what would you like to share on that?
So I think it's just a matter of perspective. I think people hear that. We listen to the gurus on social media and stuff, and that's fine. Like I listen to a ton of them, but sometimes they're the fact that it's coming from them, it's not quite as relatable. There's kind of that gap missing. It's saying, yeah, but that's not for me. Yeah, but.
Yeah,
So I'm going to take that, yeah, but, and let's make it an everyday realization of just how important it is. So let's talk going to the gym first. If you leave the gym and you're comfortable, how much productive, like what, how productive were you? What will
not
the
very.
results be? Are you ever going to attain your goal? And everyone's like, well, no, obviously. Okay, so when you're pushing weights, is that comfortable? No, it's very
No,
uncomfortable. If you've heard some of the noises I've heard at the gym, it's very uncomfortable,
coming
right?
out
You're
of both
sweating and you're
ends.
pushing because you're pushing yourself past. So fundamental and okay, so let's go back to our bodies and our intellectual and what our brains do to protect us. So there's this rule of like 60-40.
Yeah,
And so when when you do something and you're pushing yourself, your brain actually triggers into defense and says, "Hey, this is hurting you. This is harmful. You're only at 60%. That's the ratio that your body is. So you have 40% more in the tank, almost half. And it's not dangerous. It's not something that's going to hurt you. It makes you uncomfortable. And so your sensors go off. So when people are giving up, when you give up, when you're pushing and you haven't pushed yourself very much, you actually have a lot more to give.
yeah,
Like when I've worked with people at the gym and I've been pushing them, I count when they give out because they don't give out at failure. They give out when they're stressed, when they're uncomfortable. That's when they give out. That's a
yeah,
mental block. That's not a physical one. Failure is a physical max,
yeah,
right? When you're lifting and your body gives out, that's failure. Now I'm not saying do that all the time. That's not my gym advice here.
yeah.
But that shows what it takes to attain your goal. Now let's use a different analogy outside of the gym. Is there any activity to reach a goal, to build a house? You want to build your own house. That's a huge accomplishment. Is it comfortable?
Hell
No.
no.
You've got some stresses on you. You've got some financial stress on you. You've got some time stress on you. And you've got physical work. Building a house is not easy. I've been in the trades for like almost pushing 20 years. So when you do that, yeah, and you come home and it's a hard day. Like, man, you had a hard day. That's uncomfortable. It's
Yeah,
physically uncomfortable. Okay, let's compare that to being in a comfortable situation. You're sitting at home on the couch and you're watching Netflix. You have a decision to make when you're watching Netflix to be comfortable or uncomfortable. Your comfort zone is what you're used to. So you're sitting there and you're picking a show on Netflix and you're saying, I like this type of show. So you watch a thriller. Cool. That's a comfort zone. You've done nothing to grow yourself. Now you say, hey, you know what? I don't typically watch documentaries. I'm going to watch that. And maybe the first couple minutes, you're like, this just isn't my thing. But you start learning, you start taking in information. Guess what? That's overcoming being comfortable. And even if through that whole thing, you're kind of like, this just isn't enough. It's not enough dopamine hit for me. What that means is you're learning to be okay, to be uncomfortable because you're going to have a result.
yeah.
So, what situations on our day to day are we comfortable in? Because I don't think we should ever be comfortable.
No.
People look at ice baths. I know it's a big trend right now, but there's a lot of health benefits to ice baths or plunges. Are they
Mm.
comfortable?
No.
No, they are not. In fact, they're designed to be uncomfortable because that's what helps restart your circulation. That's what re-energizes your nervous system.
Yep.
Is that shock or that discomfort. So we need to be okay being uncomfortable. And I think through the past few years, we have been taught to not be uncomfortable, to taught to be comfortable. And through that, so let's talk about socialization. What's on the rise right now is anxiety. Anxiety is huge.
Yeah.
And the thing about anxiety is it's literally a fear of being uncomfortable. And I'm not oversimplifying it. Anxiety is not something that's a physical thing. I mean, anxiety is the thought and overthinking that overpowers us. I'm not saying that's not a medical condition. I'm not saying it's not a real thing, but that's the breakdown of what it actually is. So I'm not saying if you're scared of crowds to go jump in the middle of an arena. That's not the solution. That's
Yeah.
being dangerously uncomfortable, right?
It's
But
counterproductive.
yeah, exactly. But to put yourself in these micro situations where it forces you to be uncomfortable for a period of time, that's actually really healthy
Yeah.
and it helps you to grow.
Yeah.
So how if you have a goal, hey, I want to be able to go out with my friends on Friday night to a movie, but I can't do it right now. Don't go with your friends to a movie on Friday night.
Yeah.
But maybe go for a walk where lots of people walk on a pathway where you're passing people and it's uncomfortable a little bit. That's healthy. That's growth because eventually you'll start becoming more comfortable. And once you're at that comfort level, then you have to up it so that you
Yeah.
continue to be uncomfortable. And so when you start applying that principle to every aspect of your life, you will attain so much more than what you thought you were capable of, both emotionally and mentally. Like approaching somebody. I'm not even talking about picking someone up. I literally mean introducing yourself to somebody. That is so uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But can like I've been in that situation. Like
Yeah.
Mr. Mitch, super bubbly, always talk, has lots of opinions and rants, has a hard time introducing himself to somebody. Someone introduces us, I'll talk all day. We'll have conversations, no big deal. I'll learn everything about you.
Yeah.
But for me to initiate that is like pulling teeth. And it took me a lot of being uncomfortable and being more determined so that I could actually be okay. And I can go up to anybody now and introduce myself because they're just as uncomfortable as I am.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just willing to be uncomfortable.
I had a situation where I had to be uncomfortable recently. Not so recently, but I got a lot of physical issues. Right, back is messed up from the army. Legs are messed up from the army, and I always used to think, oh, just rest it off. Well, how many times and how many days do I have to rest it off before it becomes a habit and I'm not resting anymore? I'm literally just stagnant, and I was doing that for a very long time. And because of that, what a lot of people don't realize is a mental health crisis or a lack of decent mental health can start with physical issues, right?
Yeah,
Whether you
for sure.
break a leg, break an arm, you're immobile because your back is messed up, right? And so my mental health started like diving deep, and this is very recently. And I got to a point where I was like, I got to do something. And now, something so monotonous as going for a walk, I was like, this is a big issue. And I started. I would take one walk a day, and it would be from here up the hill, or here to the end of my road before it hits this hill, and then come back. And then it started getting to this point where I was incorporating things. So I was playing Pokemon Go. Everyone plays Pokemon Go. Well, not everybody. I'm a nerd, but
I
I
play.
yeah, I loved it. It's fun. I start at my house, play Pokemon Go, and I'd walk up the hill to the National Cemetery for the Civil War, and it's about a mile up the road. I turn back around, come back, boom, and that's 2 miles knocked out. Now I did that once a day, and I'm like, man, that's a lot. Tomorrow I'm gonna amp it up. I'm gonna do two. So I did that twice a day, and then it started going from two to three, and like what a lot of people don't realize is that yeah, it's something so small as going for a walk, moving your feet, putting one foot in front of the other, but you're getting out and you're in the direct sunlight, right? So you're getting the vitamin D that you wouldn't be getting if you stayed inside. And vitamin D helps out with your mental health, right? And then not to mention you're getting fresh air, whereas you would not be getting fresh air sitting inside, right? So there's all these compounding factors that can change the prospect of your day. And I didn't even realize it was happening until I did not take a walk one day. Not one. Didn't take a walk. And I was like, man, today sucks, right? Like, what am I doing? And then I was like, I got to go for a walk. And it's become a part of my day, unless my day is like slammed with other things. But I go for at least two walks a day, one in the morning, one at night, so that I get that in. I get my exercise. I'm able to move, able to walk around, and my back and legs don't hurt because I wasn't stationary.
Yeah. And as human beings, we need contact
Yeah.
in some form. And I don't mean virtually, because we both know ideally if we lived closer, we'd be doing this in person.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do this, and that's super cool. The fact is we would actually prefer it.
Yeah.
So that's why getting together is so vital. But we have become that hasn't become the norm. That's become uncomfortable because we tend to shy away, right? You look at technology, all of it is meant to stay in communication without physically being together.
Yeah.
And that trend has pushed people to be now have anxiety and have stresses and be uncomfortable around other people in person. And that's a problem because now it's starting to affect healthy interactions. And that's always been my big message on the personal development side of it, is healthy interactions with people. And how do you create that? So to me, that getting yourself to be in uncomfortable situations, stop viewing it as an enemy, stop viewing it as the villain. It's not.
Mhm.
It's literally your brain just saying, "Hey, heads up. This is out of the ordinary. This isn't something we think about." That's all it's doing. There's nothing physically harming us. So when we recognize that that's just a defense mechanism that our brain has developed, we can actually adjust that. We can change it just like an alarm clock, just
Yeah.
like a conscience. Hey, this is an acceptable threshold now. We're going to move this threshold. You can train your body to do that. And so when you start doing that now you're comfortable around people. Okay, let's step this up a little bit. How do I interact with them?
Yeah.
Because that's what's really the fear here, is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's to me where it kind of leads into the need to understand what validation actually is. And depending on time, it may actually lead into entitlement, and why
Yeah.
that has become so toxic in our everyday life with people.
We have time for that. You know, I think, and I ask a lot of people that have been in recovery prior to the pandemic how the pandemic had an effect on them, because I got sober literally right before the pandemic, right? So I was just a baby and I was in my infancy in recovery, and then they said I could stay home. Cool, I'm fine with that, right? But there's other people who are in recovery who relapsed during it because they didn't have the human connection, right? They couldn't go to their meetings in person. They couldn't go to their counselor in person, and it forced them into an uncomfortable situation. I think the pandemic, while we obviously know what happened during the pandemic, for people as a whole, it created this comfortability of, I can stay behind this screen and I don't have to interact with you if I don't want to, and I can just click X on that big red X and
Yeah.
end it, right? And that created that comfortability of, I have a screen in between me and this person. And then now that the pandemic's over, or we're not saying the pandemic's over because apparently something else is supposed to happen, but um, now that it's safe for us to go out and engage with human beings, we don't want to. But I love engaging with people. I really enjoy it. I walk to a store every once in a while, and I'll talk to the cashiers, or ladies behind the register, and I get joy from that, because I'm pumping people full of positive energy. In turn, they're returning it. But also, we don't engage like we used to, right? Like, we could just sit down at a park, talk for hours with somebody like Forrest Gump, and then just turn around and it was a day. Now we can't do that. We can't stand not talking to, or we can't stand talking to people for more than 5 minutes before we're like, ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we get distracted. And that's because we all strive for dopamine hits.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what our body's wired for. And unfortunately, those are available in things that are not healthy for you.
Yeah.
And so, you want to talk about addiction, that's what addiction is. You're
Mhm.
addicted to some form of dopamine hit, and whatever form that comes in, that doesn't, I think a lot of people, they talk addiction and they automatically think drugs because it's huge. Let's be
Yeah.
like, there's a huge drug problem. We're not going to
Yeah.
sidestep that. But addiction comes in so many forms.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, you can be addicted everything, addiction to pornography, addicted to alcohol, addicted to work.
Yeah.
It's all these things. And I think people throw that term around fairly loosely. But the amazing thing is, let's jump into validation here, because validation is not a bad thing.
No.
To need validation, that is a natural thing. People have really made that term evil, but it's not. Validation can be intertwined with fulfillment.
Yeah.
How do you feel fulfilled? What makes you feel fulfilled? How do you feel validated?
Yeah.
So when you learn, and I think this is something else too that gets kind of brushed over because it's trendy, is the love languages.
I
But
was
I
just about to say that.
but I've taken those, and I've dug into them, and I've said, they've called it love languages, and we use it in the dating world a lot. But the reality is, these are validation forms.
Yeah.
So so instead of saying, hey, what's your love language? What form of validation do you resonate with?
Yeah.
Touch. Okay. Okay, let's take touch for an example as a validation form. Touch doesn't have to come in inappropriate things, right? Like
Yeah.
touch comes in many forms.
Yeah.
So somebody that receives validation through touch, okay, in a relationship, yeah, there's some intimacy there, but that can be as simple as holding their hand, coming home, giving them a hug, making sure that they receive that physical touch. It's not just about sex.
Yeah.
And so that will validate them, and the dopamine hit happens, and guess what? They don't act out after. They don't
Yeah.
go searching for touch or that validation anywhere else. So it keeps actually a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Let's take that into the workplace. Okay, well, touching in the workplace, kind of a bit of a hustle, but a handshake, a high five, a pat on the back, those are all things that can be completely on the up and up.
Yeah.
But if you know that that person requires that, they don't feel uncomfortable. They're not feeling saying, oh, he's coming on to me. It's like, no, no, because it's done in a proper manner, but it's fulfilling them because they're saying, oh man, that handshake, saying that I did a good job with the handshake, that saying I did a good job with a pat on the back, that went a long way.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's take that into friendship. You know what? There's nothing wrong with guys hugging,
Mm-mm.
right? Like, it doesn't make you not a man.
I'm a
If
hugger.
if your friend, if physical touch is your validation, if you want to express that, hey, you are important to me, you're going to get a hug,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of compounds. Now, that's not everyone's validation. They may feel okay. Maybe it's like, yeah, I'm good with a handshake, but that doesn't validate or fulfill
Yeah.
them. Guess what? They're going to go, maybe their fulfillment language, love language, maybe it's words of affirmation. You
Yeah.
can shake that guy's hand all you want. Guess what? He doesn't care.
You don't give a damn.
Because you know what? He will leave that job and go to another job because that job says, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And to him, that resonates. And so in a relationship, you can hug the person all you want. You can shower them with gifts. You can, whatever you want. But if you don't say, hey, you mean the world to me, I love you, and I love this about you,
Mhm.
that person, and this is where relationships break down, that person, you can say, well, they gave them everything. They had a good life. If they weren't validated or they didn't receive fulfillment, naturally, as beings, we act out and
Yeah.
we go in search of that because that's what we're really looking for.
Yeah.
And that's when you get emotional, that's when you get relationship breakdowns. That's when you get cheated. As far as I'm concerned, there's
Yeah.
a level of cheating that is actually related to not receiving validation. And it may not be a malicious thing. It's if you're in an emotionally compromised state, you're going to look for that dopamine hit of validation.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe you're not going to sleep around. Maybe you're going because that person tells you things that you needed to hear.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous spot to be in. That's
Yeah.
a really toxic spot to be in. But the fact is, it came back to receiving validation. And if we just took the time to understand people that are around us, hey, what's their validation? And there's cues. You can learn that without asking them.
Mhm.
You'll know right away when someone's fully validated.
Yeah.
Like, they light up. And
Yeah.
so in addiction, when people aren't getting that validation, they turn to whatever they can. So let's go alcohol,
Yeah.
right? People turn to alcohol because they need to feel validated. So it's not the alcohol giving them the validation. And this is where the term liquid courage just drives me up a flippin' wall
Yeah.
because I love karaoke, like love. karaoke.
Yeah.
But most people like the concept of karaoke, but it makes them uncomfortable because they don't like performing in front of someone, even though they love doing it. So what
Yeah.
do they say? Get a few drinks in me. I'm a karaoke star. Is it is that liquid courage what makes you a good karaoke star? Or is it because the alcohol diminishes the thought process of you being worried about what other people are thinking, and it takes away that discomfort?
Yeah.
And so now you're not focused on that. And you're actually now you're getting the validation that you're looking for because you were seeking people's approval. You were looking for those high fives. You were looking for whatever that validation that you were getting out of it. You received it. And so now you're not contributing it to the fact that you just did it. You're contributing it to, hey, I need the alcohol in order to receive the validation. And so
Absolutely.
now it becomes a dependency in order to receive the validation.
Yeah.
You see how that chain starts happening?
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm not saying karaoke leads to alcoholism. I'm karaoke is very healthy for everybody as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
But you can start applying that same chain of events to everything,
Yeah.
whether it's
Absolutely.
relationships. People leave workplaces for reasons that they don't know, but they just know they can't be there anymore, and it's literally because they need validation.
Yeah, and the validation, it's partnered with communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a two-way responsibility, right? It's the responsibility of the person, of one party to say, how can I validate you, right? Like what do you what makes you feel validated, right?
Yeah,
That's the responsibility of one person, but it's also the responsibility of the other person if they don't feel validated. And I know that, like, it's not really their responsibility, but it kind of is, to come out and say, hey, look, I'm not feeling really validated right now, or I don't feel really loved right now. This is how this is how you can do it. And sometimes reminders get put in there. Like for me, when my girlfriend and I are talking, and she'll come and she'll be like, hey, look, I don't feel really validated right now, and this is what I need. And it's my responsibility to pick that up and go with it. And if I don't, I'm an a-hole, right? And rightfully so, because I'm not giving her what she needs, not what she wants, what she
which
needs.
needs. Yeah,
Yeah. And because there's a whole different, clause between wants and needs. She wants a whole bunch of new shoes, but what she needs, what she needs is some love and some affection.
yeah,
And that it's so important, and that's stepping in the realm of like relationships and stuff. But it's so important for us to not only ask but to receive it, and that's where the active listening comes in.
yeah. And it's funny. So we label people, and I think in the recovery world, this resonates a little bit too. We throw the term crazy around
Oh
way
man.
too much, and in the dating world too. Like people get labeled crazy. It's really sad actually. And so that one started really bothering me, saying, "Oh, that person's crazy." Okay, let's let's back this truth trolley up for a second here,
Yeah.
right? Like let's deconstruct why are you saying they're crazy? Like are they clinically crazy where they need to be locked up in a straitjacket? No. What's happening is they're making you uncomfortable. And instead of you saying, hey, I need to figure out why this isn't working, why we're so separate, you're just saying they're crazy. And that gets rid of the accountability that you have. And you can walk away and be like, that chick's crazy.
Yeah.
No, she's not crazy. And here's what the problem is: she's not crazy. We act out of our natural character when we're searching for fulfillment, when
Yeah.
we're searching for validation. You think of a starving dog. What do they act like a dog that's cared for and fed and loved? No, they act very differently. They're defensive. They act out of character. Maybe they're even a little mean at times because they don't know, right? Everything is scared. They're in this constant state of fear. Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you're let's pick on girls for a little bit. If you're a girl that has been mistreated, that has been abused, that has been, kicked aside, maybe has their heart broken, has never actually experienced somebody take the time to give them proper validation, how do you think they're going to act? They're going
Yeah.
to learn to live in survival mode.
Hmm.
And what do guys do? Well, if it doesn't makes you uncomfortable, guess what? You label them as crazy. Girls do it to each other too. But now what's happening is they're realizing that guys and men's mental health all of a sudden is becoming a little bit more focused on, and they're saying, okay, maybe he wasn't crazy, maybe he made some bad decisions, maybe he was put in that position maybe because he wasn't being validated. And
Yeah.
it's not an ego play. These are natural needs that we all need, just like food. This is an emotional food. It's sustenance, is
Yeah.
proper validation. And so when you have a breakdown of people not giving each other the proper validation in relationships, you're creating a toxic culture of labeled socially crazy people. But really, you take a woman and you give her the proper validation according to her emotional needs. Guess what? You can take a broken girl and you can make her beautiful.
Yeah.
But it takes effort and it takes things that are going to be uncomfortable. And sometimes we just have to recognize I don't have the emotional capability to do that for her. I'm not going to make it worse. And you have to step out
Yeah.
and you got to
I
say,
know.
I can't be in that situation. And
And a
that's just
lot.
a relationship take on it.
Oh yeah. And a lot of us are afraid to hear the way that our partner perceives us, right? Like when I first got into this relationship, I was uncomfortable with the way that she perceived me because that's not who I am. That's what I was telling myself. That's not who I am. But that's the way that she perceives me. And up to this point, she was a complete stranger. So maybe she's seeing something that I haven't seen or that somebody else hasn't told me. Or maybe something that somebody has told me, I just negated. Right. So taking that feedback and not getting defensive over it is beneficial, but we always take it as a personal attack. I do too. I do that
Yep.
shit all the time. I take it as a personal attack. I'm like, you just hate me. No, no, I don't hate you, but I see some flaws and you got to work on it.
But see the resistance to being uncomfortable because
Hmm.
being held accountable is not always comfortable.
No.
And so when we're in discomfort, we act out. We
Yeah.
get defensive because we need to change the situation to make it comfortable again. And that's what bullying is at the end of the day. It's people trying to control a situation so that they're comfortable because they're uncomfortable not being in control of a situation or being the whatever you want to call it, alpha, intrude, like whatever that term is. But
Yeah.
that's the source of bullying.
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
when you start digging into, and I know we glazed over a lot of this because it's such an in-depth conversation, but when you take the time to reflect on your own needs of validation, call it the love language, whatever you want to call it, and you look at the needs of your partner or maybe people that you're interested in, your interactions will be so much healthier. And then it takes that discomfort out of it. And now you can actually start growing
Yeah.
and,
Oh, yeah.
and getting into it. So I think to me, the focus was bring attention in a way that maybe resonates with people in a different way and say like don't shy away from these topics. These are important things that you need to be self-aware on, and if you want to grow and you want to grow in your relationships, you want to grow in your personal development, you have to start recognizing. And in order to overcome something, so let's talk recovery, in order to overcome something you need to recognize why the problem is there in the first place.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not as simple as you know I broke up and I went into depression. Sometimes it's not as simple as my parents didn't love me. Like, yeah, those are factors for sure, but there's always something more. And maybe it's something as simple as you're not as grown men for the past 20 years, we haven't received a compliment.
Hmm.
Maybe we haven't received something. Maybe we need words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Well, that's really hard to get as a male. It's real hard to get. Go on
Yeah.
social media and try to get some. It's almost impossible.
It's worse on TikTok.
Oh, TikTok is, I have a love hate relationship with TikTok, but
It's the new
it's
Twitter.
the keyboard warriors. They don't realize what they're doing to people.
Yeah.
They think it's just fun banter and it gives them maybe a little dopamine hit, but it doesn't give them validation. And this is even bullying. Like to stay on this topic for a minute, when you look at bullies, the validation they receive is not necessarily just a straightforward, this is the validation bullies receive.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like there was a term in a dog obedience show that I was watching, and they said
Mhm.
like rewarding bad behavior can come in different forms. And I'm like, well, of course you're not going to reward bad behavior. But they're like, even just attention is
Yeah.
rewarding bad behavior because sometimes they don't actually care what the attention is. You can yell at them, they just wanted your attention.
Yeah.
Kids do this too. So in the adult world, you've got bullies that, make fun of people or they belittle someone in front of a group and everybody laughs. That doesn't mean that they're looking for the validation of their peers. Maybe they're looking for something else. Maybe they're just looking for a reaction because they need attention.
Yeah.
And so it's not the attention of those watching. Maybe it's just your attention that they're looking for. And if you don't give it to them, then they get crazier and crazier. So you can tell what a bully's validation is by if they start ramping up really fast, it's because they're grasping at straws, because
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to achieve. So if you want to figure out how to beat a bully, find out why he's being validated by bullying, and then you can address it.
Yeah.
So when someone's addicted to alcohol, what in the alcohol, where's the validation? Because it's somewhere in there. It's not the booze, but what is it giving them? What is it creating that they're getting the validation from?
Oh, I can tell you mine.
But everyone has it. But if
Yeah.
you're not self-aware, like we were talked about with the karaoke, did the validation come from the actual drink? No, it came from the people's reaction once they were doing something with the inhibitions lowered.
Yeah. Yeah. My validation came in not taking responsibility for anything, right? If I acted like an asshole, I just feel like that's not who I am. I was drunk, right? So I could act like a complete imbecile and then turn around the next one and be like, that's not who I really am. That's a different me. But then I started associating that version of me with who I really thought I was, right? Because it was just so frequent that I was doing this. Is I would turn around and I'd be like, "Hey, you haven't met the real me until you met the drunk me." Really,
Yeah.
really. And it was only until I was able to step away from that and get into recovery to realize like that was a facade and I was a complete asshole.
Yeah.
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 So
No, it's
entitlement.
it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into
Entitlement.
entitlement.
Yeah, let's get into entitlement.
So I would say that there's not going to be a lot of people that disagree with me that we live in a very entitled environment,
Oh yeah.
right? You've got people that show up to work and don't take responsibility because they're entitled to be there. I think the tipping culture proves this level of entitlement. I'm entitled to a tip, even though I didn't do anything to deserve it.
Yeah.
Tipping is something that should be a reward for doing something out of the ordinary, not an expectation. And this entitlement is saying, hey, if you don't tip me, you don't appreciate me. It's like, no, I paid you for the service that you promised to do. It was a transaction. I see no reason for reward here,
Yeah.
right? So this entitlement is comes in, and then you've got the entitlement. You see it on social media. I'm a pretty girl. I'm not attacking women here, but just I'm a pretty girl, and they literally on their lives will sit there, and they won't talk, they won't engage, and guys are just throwing gifts at them
Yeah.
because they're trying to pay for attention, right? And so what this does is it creates an entitlement of, hey, I'm pretty, hey, I have certain features, so that way you should adore me, you should pay me, and second of all, if we do ever meet in person, you should definitely pay for everything,
Yeah.
right? I should get a free ride. So it's creating a culture of entitled girls, and then OnlyFans kind of took that to the next step, where now all of a sudden there's an extreme entitlement. And they don't expect to have to do anything because they have a physical, presence and body that, basically that's their ticket to life. And then that entitlement goes into so much else. But let's just take that for a minute. And you have a lot of young guys too that are entitled that think, because they're good at hockey,
Yeah.
that they should get whatever they want and whoever they want. So our current society definition of entitlement is you should receive something without working for it, right? There's no
Expectation.
transaction. It's an expectation to receive a reward without any effort or deserving of it, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we go back to where the term entitlement came from and we look at that context, everything goes back to like the early ages, right?
Yeah.
Ownership of land.
Yeah.
Like that was a title. You got a
Yeah.
title. Now, if you purchased a piece of land, you got a title. You were entitled to that land, but it
Mhm.
wasn't just given to you because of your pretty face. It was given to you because you paid for it.
Yeah.
And how did you pay for it? Well, you had to work somewhere to receive the money to buy the title so that you could be entitled.
Mhm.
Now, you get older, you have that title of land, you have an option now. You can sell it or you can hand it down to your children so that they can have that land. So they get this piece of paper and they own this land now. Did they work for it? Nope. but they were entitled to that because their father worked hard for it. Now, somebody worked hard for that land, somebody paid for it, and the transfer of ownership was where the entitlement happened, an
Hmm.
inheritance. So when you are saying, hey, I'm entitled, maybe not that vocabulary, but when you're acting in a way that's saying, I deserve this, you're saying that somebody else should work to get my reward
Yep.
so that I can get the reward. So when you're expecting a tip and you didn't do anything for it, that's an entitlement because you're saying, you know what? You work hard at your job, you go get paid. You know what? I'm being with you. I deserve more than what I'm charging. So you should give that to me. Because
Yeah.
of what? Because of what? There's no transaction. Money it's a transfer based on value. You haven't given me any value, but now we have this entitlement. Oh, I'm entitled to, make a living, but I don't want to work 8 hours. Okay, you're not entitled to an 8 hour wage if you don't
Yep.
work 8 hours.
Yep.
You own a business. Oh, and let's turn this into podcasting for a minute. This is a big breakdown with podcasters, and it's something that I consistently fight. People are like, I created a podcast and I feel the content's good and the message is really good. Awesome. They're like, but my view count's down. I don't have a big view count. Why would you? Why do people owe you anything? What have you done to earn their time and attention? That's an entitlement to say, well, my message good. I should be at 100,000 downloads. No, you shouldn't. You should not.
You deserve exactly what you get, bud.
You deserve nothing. You have to
Exactly.
earn it. And how do you earn it? You stay consistent. You prove loyalty to the audience rather than them proving loyalty to you. And you know what? A lot of the times it takes a little bit of capital to put some marketing so that you can boost because the internet now has just become a marketing tool. So
Yep.
these platforms, it's a pay to play. And I'm sorry, but you are not entitled to viewership on somebody else's platform unless you are going to give a transaction. So you're
Right.
saying, hey, I'm on TikTok. You need to listen to my stuff. You need to see my stuff. No, no, no. Go create your own platform.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you can't. Somebody else put in the time and effort to create TikToks, Facebook, Instagram, and you can worry about the corruption all you want, but the fact is they created it. There was people that have put time and effort and payment, and you're going to sit on there and say for free, I deserve more views. You don't deserve anything.
Nope.
So that entitlement is a problem because we have to realize that there is nothing for free in this world. Those unicorns that you see, the girls that go viral because they were dancing, that even that, they had to do something for it.
Yeah.
And there's people that won't even do that. And they sit there and expect everything and say, well, I did this, so I should be getting, all the money that I want.
Yeah.
No, because that's not the value. That's not the transfer of value here.
Yeah.
There is no title being handed to you because you
Yeah.
don't deserve it. And so
Yeah.
this little pouty face that people are doing, that's that entitlement to me and maybe I'm like convoluting a little bit, but that's what I've been finding is kind of a common thread here.
Going on the deserving things. And I'm going to say this here. This is the first time I'm ever saying it. As a veteran, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, well, you deserve X. You deserve Y. No, I don't. I did a job that I was called to do. I did that job. I fulfilled my contract. Yeah, I got hurt. I got kicked out early. I got medically retired early, but I did my job. That would be like me saying, you work at Lowe's, right? Home Depot, what have you, and you did a service to them and you deserve X, Y, and Z. No, I did a transaction. I signed my life away to the army. I did my time and I got out. Granted, I went through some things, but at the end of the day, I don't deserve a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
What I need is to continue being the best version of myself. I deserve to be the best version of myself. That's what I deserve. I don't deserve any monetary value. I don't deserve any special discounts, none of that. What I deserve is to be the best version of myself so that I can be the best version of myself for my family, my friends, the people that I interact with. Mitch, I can be the best of myself for you, and that's what I deserve. I don't deserve anything else. And I think that hearing that, I don't really get mad over it, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I don't deserve it. Stop telling
Well,
me I deserve it.
and we all deserve something. We all deserve to be treated fairly.
Hmm.
We all deserve human rights. We all deserve dignity. We all, those are things that we naturally do deserve.
Yeah.
And that's not wrong to request that or fight for that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've seen, and I know we have different countries, and there's definitely a different patriotic, especially with the army down in the States versus here in Canada. But what I've seen is has been very disheartening, especially, talk military for a minute, is I've had people come into businesses that I've worked at and said, "What's my military discount?" And I'm sitting there going, that really bothers me. That really bothers me. And I've heard other people, like lots of union places too. They work at the mill or something, and the mill's a big shot in the town, but they're like the guy on the assembly line, and then they come in, they're like, "What's my XYZ discount because I work at that place?" Well, okay, you're saying that you're entitled to a discount because you work somewhere. Now, that being said, this we are not talking about if somebody chooses to do something nice for you because they feel that they would like to offer that to you because they appreciate something that you did, whether that's military service or not. That is up to them to do above and beyond. But your expectation that they should be treating you differently because of a choice that you made
Yeah.
and maybe sacrifices you made, that's wrong. As far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, that is wrong.
Yeah.
That is an arrogance at play, and that extends beyond the military.
Yeah.
But I've also seen, veterans that are very humble. They don't want to talk about it because it's something they did for themselves. They felt they had to do it. And there's people that I've seen not want to be a part of the military, and it's not out of disrespect, but it's a personal choice that they've made that they're going to, make a different stand.
Hmm.
But both of those people, they're entitled to have their decision respected.
Yeah.
What they're not entitled to is other people to support them,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But they are not they are entitled to not be oppressed because of it, but they are entitled to have it.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is where people really they let their emotions override things and say, well, that person, you know what, who cares?
Right.
Who cares? And this is where entitlement really is conflicting, and it's happening in schools, it's happening in relationships. Oh, going back to relationships, an entitled person says, I don't care what my partner's validation is. I don't care what their love language is. This is mine and I deserve to have it fulfilled. No, you do not. You do not deserve that from them. You have to earn it from them.
Yeah.
Right? And it just extends into the workplace. I'm the manager. I deserve respect. No, you do not. You earn respect.
Yeah.
And this is a big breakdown with entrepreneurs. I own the business. Okay, I'm starting a business. I'm a plumbing company. I'm a good plumber. Why is no one taking my quotes? Because you haven't earned their business.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that do get maybe the breaks, or maybe they get some advantages because of some shallow things, but those are short term. And all that does, that's not helping somebody, because now they create that entitled thing because they didn't actually have to work for those leads.
Yeah.
And so now that's an expectation, and that's a
Yeah.
problem.
Exactly.
So social
Exactly.
media, I do go back to social media being a bit of a problem because it has created entitlement, because you've got YouTubers that are making, huge bank.
Yeah.
But even YouTubers, as stupid as you think some of their content is, they work hard. They work hard on
Yeah.
that content,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh
and
yeah.
they do a lot of editing, and they do a lot of market research. Like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is not entitled. Mr. Beast worked hard.
Yeah.
And there's another guy that I like throwing his name out because people are kind of surprised. Matt Rife,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
comedian.
Matt Rife. Yeah.
People say, well, he's really good looking, so he just got everyone's attention. Wrong. That
He's
guy
smart.
grinded for 11 years in comedy clubs, not like we're talking small audiences, like 50 people maybe, for
Yeah.
11 years. And then it wasn't until just the right time TikTok that he made that ever he started getting attention. And then 6 months later, now he's like, touring the world. But anyone who said that that was a luck or a lucky break, or he wasn't entitled to it, he did the work.
Yeah.
And in the sports world, all these guys, you don't make it in the NFL, you don't make it to the NFL, let alone stay in the NFL because you're sitting on the sidelines. Like those guys, the problem is they become entitled because now all of a sudden they give everything. But to get to that point, when you see someone drafted, that guy worked his flipping butt off. That was a transaction.
Yeah.
He worked for it. You can't buy your way into the NFL on the field. You
Yeah.
can't in the NHL. You can't buy your way in.
Yeah.
You still got to
Tom,
earn it.
Tom Brady didn't deserve to be the best quarterback of all time. He worked his ass off to get there,
He
right?
earned it, and hate him or love it, there's a reason he has Super Bowl rings. You can claim all this stuff, but the fact is, whether a couple of them are questionable or not, doesn't matter. The fact is that guy trains hard. He worked hard. Now, outside of that, did he do some things maybe with some entitlement? Probably, right? But going back to being a Super Bowl winner, he worked for it. He
Yeah.
made the right passes. He made the connections. He cultivated relationships with his teammates so that they could work really fluid. And that transcends into other sports. You start going to all these things. But I think some of the contract sizes in sports have created an entitlement.
Oh yeah.
You've got guys being paid so much money and they think because of something, well, they deserve that much money, and then they don't perform.
I hate the saying I know my worth when it comes to certain aspects of society. You know your worth. That's cool. But have you proven your worth?
Yeah.
Right? Like, have you proven it to other people that you are worth the time, energy, effort, money, all that other stuff?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Because even a bombshell girl that says she's a 10, it, to me, that's still perspective.
Yeah.
Because you can be as beautiful as you want. A guy over here, if he doesn't like blondes, he prefers brunettes. Are you a 10? Are you
Yeah.
entitled for him to say no? He has to think that I'm the best that he can get. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. And the fact is, if that's what you're measuring things off of, you're kind of starting behind the eight ball here anyway.
Right.
But it does go to show we live in a very superficial world, especially with online dating and Tinder and Hinge and all this stuff. It comes down to looks. You're not going to swipe on somebody that you're not physically attracted to.
Yeah.
Okay. But that entitlement, once they swipe, you're still not entitled to that person's, attention.
Yeah.
Like just because you're pretty, it only gets you so far. And just because you're good looking, just because you're a firefighter with the six pack, it only gets you so far. And to think that just because you have a rockin' body, according to a certain level of standard, that you're entitled to have women falling over you, no, you're not. You're not entitled to that. Now, we live in a society where that tends to happen. But if that does happen and I'm walking down the street and women are falling over for me, rather than being entitled, I'd be appreciative.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but same thing is, you have a decision. Do I view this as something that I've earned, something that I deserve? There's a difference.
Yeah.
Because even paychecks, right? You can say, I know my worth. Okay, my worth is $30 an hour. Sure, you've limited yourself, but okay, let's call it $30 an hour. So if someone turns around and offers you 27, is that below your worth?
No.
What makes you think you deserve 30? Right? And especially in the trades world, do you think you deserve, this is kind of a battle for me lately, do you think you deserve $40 an hour because you've been doing the specific trade for 40 years? Or do you think you deserve, somebody else deserves 20 because they're newer to it? What does experience or how long you've been doing it have anything to do with that? And the fact is, it does, but it shouldn't, because that person that just started might actually better be equipped for the job. Maybe he's actually better at it. Maybe you haven't updated your methods and you're still doing it like you were 40 years ago. And the problem with that is you're doing it wrong now. So who's worth more money? But in their own eyes, the apprentice is worth less money than, you know, the expert.
Yeah.
The fact is, their actual work may be completely reversed or different, or maybe they're the same.
Yeah.
So who's entitled to money? Nobody.
Yeah.
That's why I hate hourly wages in a sense, because they don't justify it. The guy that sweats his butt off at McDonald's flipping burgers, we think, yeah, that's a 12-hour job because he's just flipping burgers. But maybe that guy has a higher work ethic than some of the guys making $60 an hour.
Oh yeah.
But who's entitled to the $60 an hour?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And this is where we really have to reflect on ourselves and say, okay, am I showing an entitled attitude? And where's that going to get me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
I think that it's right on point, um, and I think that if we can step away from that entitlement and step away from um, not listening to our partners and step away from not not being willing to be uncomfortable, I think as a society we can start moving forward.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah, there's my rant. There's Mitch's rant on Sean's podcast for a bit.
Well, I enjoyed it. Mitch, where can we find you, man?
I'm on social media, but most under my personal. I mean, Mitch Harley's pretty much all of them, IG, TikTok. But I mean, if you want to find where that message is strong and where that push is happening, that's the perspective umbrella, whether it's the perspective podcast or the perspective podcastbot.ca. And, we do a number of different things for people, and some of it is personal development. And yeah, so we're all over the map, but you can definitely track us down.
Yes, Mitch is a man of many hats, and I'm glad to have met Mitch. I love this man. He's awesome. Every time I see his face pop up across my screen, I'm like, yeah, I can talk to Mitch today. But, anyways, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening. And I hope that what Mitch said today and the conversation that Mitch and I had today strikes a nerve. I hope it does. I hope it makes you feel a little uncomfortable because these are conversations that we need to have. And these are the conversations that are going to push us forward as a society. And if we don't talk about it, then we can't push forward as a society. So, till next time, much love. Be good. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.